Good evening. Welcome to the ECU STEPP Fireside Chat with me, Ashley Cooper. I'm the transition specialist for the STEPP program, and tonight we are going to do an overview of the STEPP 2026 application to provide you with some updates in terms of the application process and also inform you about materials for the application. So, while we're live here tonight, I'm going to answer your questions live. So, if you have a question, no question is too big or too small, please drop them in the chat so I can answer your questions live. Feel free to interrupt me throughout this session tonight. So let's go ahead and get started into our actual programming for tonight. So, like I said, I'm Ashley Cooper, the ECU STEPP program transition specialist, and tonight we're going to do an overview about STEPP and our application process for the STEPP 2026 cohort. So, we always like this big question: what's STEPP? So, STEPP is an acronym that stands for Supporting Transition and Education Through Planning and Partnership. So, the ECU STEPP program provides access and comprehensive academic support for students that have a documented specific learning disability at East Carolina University. The diagnosis could include specific learning disabilities such as a reading disorder, which is dyslexia, a disorder of written expression, dysgraphia, or math disorder, which is dyscalculia. So, the eligibility criteria for the STEP program is that students must have a documented specific learning disability and be eligible for services through our ECU disability support program. And we have some few people on tonight, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat. I see a comment right here that says they are so excited for tonight, and I am as well. This is my first time leading the fireside chat by myself. I normally have a moderator on the call, so chat for any questions that you have throughout the night. So if you have any questions tonight, make sure you drop them in the chat so I can answer them live. All right, let's get our next slide. So our talk a little bit about our applications being open. 2026 cohort, our applications are now open, and you can apply today to at step.ecu.edu to be a part of our ECU STEP program. So if you're thinking about joining the STEP program, I wanted to let you know that our applications are open, and the deadline to apply to the STEP program is May 15th, 2025. Up until now, until May 15th, to get your application in for the STEP program. Is that the ECU STEP program's application is separate from the ECU application. So you actually start this application earlier. We do have a timeline for students to apply. Students apply to the STEP program during their high school junior year. So I'll say that again because that's not typical for a college application. Students apply to the STEP program during their high school junior year. So that means you're graduating by the spring of 2026. We also accept 10 students per fall semester for the STEP program. And I think that's important to acknowledge for students applying to our program. And students also apply to our program directly. So we do have a separate application process that takes place before your ECU application. So let's look at that timeline in a little bit more detail. So a student coming into the ECU STEP program for this STEP 2026 cohort, will be a high school junior. So now is your time to apply. You have until May 15th to get your application in for the STEP program. The biggest thing I want to highlight here is that our application closes on May 15th. So I'm here to support you in any way to make sure you get your application done. And one of the things that we provide for students is application workshops that we're going to talk about a little bit later. So if you're thinking about applying to the STEP program, making sure you're in your high school junior year and also making sure you get your application in before May 15th is very important. So tonight I wanted to kind of application materials so that I help support students by providing them with an application checklist and an guide. The application checklist offers you support into knowing what you need to have your application complete in terms of the forms and then the required application materials that you have to complete. So for your application profile, you actually have to complete that form first in order for you to unlock your application. So that's a very important, vital step into making sure you're applying to the STEP program and making sure your application actually opens. Other things that you are required items that you have to submit with your application is your high school transcript and report card, your ACT and or SAT scores, documentation of accommodations on the ACT or SAT. You have to provide answer to the STEP program's essay prompts. We do have specific prompts that are available on our website for students if they're thinking about applying. And the other thing to note about our essay is that students submit their drafts and their final essay for the ECU program. We also have 2 teacher recommendations, your IEP, 504 plan, and or other high school disability support documentation, and then a psychoeducational evaluation with a learning disabilities diagnosis. And I'm so excited to see a question in the chat, which I am going to highlight tonight. I noticed in our last Fireside Chat that we went through the application guide really quickly last Fireside Chat. And so I wanted to do a deeper dive into that tonight. So great question. I'm going to move us right into that by sharing my screen with you guys so you're able to see our actual website so we can take a closer look at the application guide. So our application guide is actually on our ECU STEP website. So if you go to our website at step.ecu.edu, you'll be able to find our application guide here. So you will go to the apply drop down menu, select that menu, and then select the application guide. Once you select the application guide, this page will load and you will have access to a lot of features and resources to help support you with your application. So at the top of this portion of the website, here are links to our different forms of our application guide. And so let's click this first form here to take a deeper dive into our applicant profile. You'll see here how to actually complete your application. So some important information here is highlighted in yellow to help make sure that you can have a complete understanding of what you're going to expect in for the application itself. So the biggest part of the application is making sure you're completing this applicant profile form. The applicant profile form unlocks the entire application for you. So once you complete your demographic information, so give us a little bit of information about yourself and some data, as well as submit your actual your email to the application, lets me know you're on track in terms of applying to STEP. But it also gives me your contact information so I can provide you with updates about your application itself. So on the applicant profile, you're providing that information. Then we ask for a little bit of information about your family information. So a little bit of demographics about your parents and your siblings that you provide on that form as well. So through this, you see that this guide is set up so you can kind of flip through it like a book. See here, and you are able to click the next section button, and it will take you to the next section of the application that you will actually see. So on your education information form, You provide us with information about your high school transcript. You provide us with information about your report card, your individual education plan or IEP, or 504 plan, or some students have a documentation of accommodation. So they have some kind of form that their educator or their school supports or accommodations that they receive. And then also on this form, it gives me the ability to see kind of an overview of any high schools that you have attended in the past, any post secondary schools. Maybe you are dual enrolled, maybe you're getting some other additional supports in high school. So this gives you the ability to document all of this information. Another part of this form is our application materials information form. On this form, it provides you a link to be able to update your or submit your scores for your ACT or SAT, the ability to look through your ACT and SAT accommodations documentation. And it also allows you to submit your current psychoeducational evaluation or reevaluation that shows your documentation for your specific learning disability. And on each of these websites, you are able to see the required materials, but it also gives you some detailed information of what type of required documentation that you have to submit to the program in order to be eligible. And on this form as well, you will submit the names of your you have to have two educators that recommend you for the STEP program. So typically, a teacher that is in the core academic subjects like English, math, science, or foreign social studies. So those are some different areas of a teacher that you can actually submit recommendations for. And then also, we like for those recommendations to have two different subject areas as well. So thinking about those recommendations, and all of these materials are online and accessible by you by just going to step.ecu.edu. We have two more sections to quickly look at. We have our essay section. So, like I said, the STEP program has specific prompts for you to follow. Here, you can look at the different parts in terms of the things that you have to submit. So, remember, you have to submit your final essay, but you also have to submit all of your drafts for your essay. So, taking a look here at your essay prompts, here are the questions that we like for students to address on their essay. So, making sure you're following each of these steps so that you're able to submit this information. So, step one is going through the actual prompts, writing your essay, making sure you're submitting your final essay and all of your drafts, and then also making sure you're going back into the online form and updating the necessary information there about how you completed your essay is also very important. And then the last form that you have to complete is a wrap up. This allows you to sign off saying that you're finalizing your application materials, but it also gives you the ability to note whether you're missing some information. And you have provided us a link to an educator that may be updating some additional materials for you. So it kind of gives you a way to update your information and see all of the ways that you've submitted your documentation for the STEP program. And then also, we also have here our application deadline. So remember that the application closes on May 15th of 2025. And then we also have a link here so that you can actually apply to the STEP program today. So make sure you're taking a look at this application guide because it provides a great overview of all the information that you have to submit to the STEP program itself. So let's take us back to our full presentation. So thank you so much for that question. Great question. I really want to go through each of the parts of the application guide today in order to help students actually apply to STEP. So if you have any questions about the guide or just have any questions in general about STEP, please drop those questions in the chat tonight so I can answer those live. Since I brought up the SAT and ACT, this was a question that we had back in our December Fireside Chat about our SAT and ACT is it required? So I wanted to bring this back up because I know that it is currently in the state of being test optional, being dependent upon maybe GPA and some parameters in terms of when do you submit your SAT score or ACT score. I want to remind you guys that the STEP program is really early in the application process. So we really take consideration into understanding that what that next cohort is going to look like. So we require that students submit their ACT or SAT scores and documentations of accommodations with their application, being dependent upon, we don't know for that future cohort whether that will be a requirement or to ECU. So we always want to make sure checking that off your list in terms of things that you have to do when you actually formally apply to ECU. So one of the things we do require is that you submit your SAT and ACT score. So being that you're submitting that SAT and ACT score, make sure you have your SAT and ACT scheduled before the May 15th deadline. That is very important and vital to making sure your application stays on the correct timeline. And I see we have a few people on, so if you do have any questions, feel free to drop those questions in the chats and answer those questions live. All right. So another thing that we are doing this semester is that we are providing students with application workshops. This gives you the ability to schedule virtual application assistance. So it gives you the ability to ask any questions. Maybe you are stuck on a part of the application where you're not sure what you have to submit, or you would like some help with getting the application edited. So maybe you lost your return codes, you can't get back into your application, you just need a little support. We do have some upcoming workshops. We have upcoming one is scheduled on February 24th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We have one at on March 24th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and then April 7th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. You can actually our website to actually schedule this information, so you can schedule a time to meet in a group workshop. I will highlight that if you are having trouble with the application and you want individual assistance with the application, you can always feel free to contact me and I will provide you with information about the STEP program and what you need. So if you do need to contact me, I drop my information on the screen for you. So if you need to contact me, please send me an email so I can help schedule out some time so that I'm able to assist you with their application, to be a resource for students to get their questions answered about anything they have for STEP. So if you are like, none of these workshops will, make sure you contact me so we can schedule a different time to make that work. And also, if you're just joining us and this is your first time hearing about the STEP program, make sure you send us some information and let us know that so I can get to meet with you and give you a little bit more information about STEP and our expectations. So I do see we have a question in the chat. How many students do you accept each year? Is it a rigorous process of who is accepted? So this is a really great question. So we accept 10 students per fall semester for the STEP program. In terms of the process, the timeline looks a bit short on our side, I would say, for a prospective student going to the process. We do have a very comprehensive application. We are trying to get the notice students as a learner. So we try to get the notice students as a learner on paper, and then we also try to get the notice students as a the first step is for you to actually complete your ECU STEP program application. Once you complete your application, after May 15th, our admissions committee will review your application and we'll decide who will move on to the next process in terms of the application cycle. So, moving on into the next process means that you have been selected for an interview. Any applicant that's selected for an interview has met the requirements of STEP, meaning that they have met the eligibility criteria of having a specific learning disability and also met the eligibility criteria of being on a college preparatory track, meaning they have the required high school courses in order to come in STEP program. What I will say, that's a continuous process that we look at in terms of required high school courses. So you do have to submit updated information about your senior high school courses as well to allow us to ensure staying on track for that process. After students are selected for an interview, we try to get back fairly quickly with students before the end of the month for May, to provide them with an update of whether they've been selected for the interview. If you selected for the interview, typical timeline for our students interview during the last 2 weeks of July when we have interviews, and allow students to actually select preferred date. I try my best to schedule all interviews on preferred dates. I do my very best. I will say sometimes we have to work around everyone's schedule to make it work. So choose your first preferred date. We might choose your third. So we work around schedules to build out application day that students can come in and actually participate in the interview process. I will say the interview process is there to help us understand the student's learning profile, is not there to trip any student up in terms of their application. We want to know the students as a learner, so it's very casual conversations. They interview with our admissions team, and we kind of go through that cycle, and students are alerted of their status of their application in terms of whether they are accepted or not into the STEP program very early. It's late August, but really early in terms of knowing when students are actually getting to college. So most of our students know very early whether they're accepted in the STEP, and they're also accepted into college. And we have another question in the chat. Thank you so much for that question, and hopefully I answered it. To if you have additional questions, please put those in the chat. Here is another question we have. What grade in high school do you start taking applications? So students actually apply to our program during their high school junior year. So right now we're in the application cycle of taking the STEP 2026 application. Those students are graduating in the spring of 2026. So students actually start the application during their high school junior year. That was a really great question. I really appreciate that question in the chat. Thank you so much. And feel free to ask any additional questions that you may have throughout this process. We have about 8 minutes left, so I want to make sure I really important because I want you to come on campus. I want you to visit STEP, but not only STEP, I want you to visit East Carolina University. And one of the ways that you can do that is to schedule your time at the ECU STEP program around your time at ECU. So I really highly encourage any prospective students and families to schedule a visit with our ECU admissions. And if you can, schedule it on the same day that you visit the STEP program. So we do have a couple of open up that are provided on our website. We have one coming up on February 14th. So if you have some time to visit the STEP program on Valentine's Day, we do have community building events that we have scheduled throughout the year. You may be in luck to see that event happening if you visit us during that open house. We also have a event scheduled on March 28th. And then we also, if you're not able to visit us in person, no worries. We have virtual opportunities for you to visit the STEP program. We have two that are coming on February 17th and March 5th. Typically, we try to have those virtual workshops, open houses scheduled later in the day. So that, like I said, if you are having any problems scheduling with the scheduling that we provided for STEP, make sure you send me an email so I can schedule a time that works for you. So I also do, in addition to open house events, I do individual sessions where parents and students may be able to make it to the exact timeline of an open house, but they have some availability that they want to spend the STEP, and I open up my time to make sure I'm able to provide students with that. Also for virtual visits as well. If these don't meet your timeline and you want to actually learn more about STEP, please feel free to contact me so you can learn some additional information about the STEP program. And this information is also provided on our website as well. So if you do have any questions, feel free to contact me so I can help support you with scheduling out either an open house event, a virtual event, or application workshop so I can help support you with completing your application. So you can always contact the STEP program by looking at our website at step.ecu.edu, or you can send our generic email to our ECU STEP program email at step@ecu.edu. I'll answer that email if you send it directly to that as well, or by giving us a phone call and our follow up. If you leave me a voicemail, if I'm not in the office at that time, I'll definitely follow up with you to answer any questions that you have. And I wanted to go to my last slide here so you can have my direct contact information. So here's my direct contact information if you have any questions about STEP or about the ECU or about ECU in general, or you want to schedule some time to meet with me to talk about expectations of the program. I know tonight we kind of just did an overview of the actual application, but we do have some expectations for the program I would love to share with you guys as well. I have about 5 minutes left. I want to make sure I'm answering all of your questions live. So if you do have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat right now. I'm going to do a quick review of a couple of reminders from what we went over tonight based on the questions that we had tonight. I'm going to see if I can take us back to this slide here that shows our applications are now open for the ECU STEP 2026 cohort. You can apply at our website at step.ecu.edu. Make sure you know that our application deadline is on May 15th. So our application deadline is on May 15th. Our ECU applications are now open. So please make sure you apply today. I'm checking the chat. Make sure you drop any questions here and I'll answer them here live as we come up on the final minutes of our STEP Fireside Chat. I also wanted to let you guys know that students apply to the STEP program during their high school junior year. And applications are open now, so you can apply at our website at step.ecu.edu/apply. And our applications close on May 15th this year. So our applications close on May 15th. So I wanted to make sure I provided you with that information tonight. And I also want to make sure that we um, give you the opportunity to answer any questions live here tonight. So if you have questions, we have the answer. So go ahead and submit those questions in the chat. And let's see. This is a great question. Will there be any other fireside chats this winter? Great question. Yes, we posted a listing of our fireside chats on our STEP program website. So give me a quick second so I can take us back to the website so we can take a look at that information. So if you are on our STEP program website, so I'll take us quickly back to the homepage here. If you go to our visit page, also if you scroll down on our homepage, you'll also see information about all the events that we have here at the ECU STEP program. So here are our on campus events that we have coming up, our virtual events, and then also our live stream events. If you're interested in scheduling time to board the ship to learn a little bit more about our services at the ECU STEP program, make sure you click the link here on campus. Schedule now, virtual, schedule now. Click these links so you're able to schedule these visits to learn a little bit more about the STEP program. And as always, like I mentioned earlier, if these times do not coincide with time you are available, make sure you reach out to me so I can provide you with my availability so we can schedule a time so that I can provide you with the on-campus visit or a virtual visit so I can share information about our services and our admissions process for the STEP program. So I'll remind you once again, we have this lovely image here that the STEP 2026 application is now open and the deadline is May 15th. So if you need to learn more about it, we have information on our website to help support you guys as well. So I'll stop sharing and I'll switch back over to make sure we don't have any last minute comments. We do have one more chat, are there grants available for STEP? So, what I will say is that we do have scholarships that are available for students in the STEP program. There are also scholarships on our award portal for ECU in general. So, there are scholarships available to ECU students on the award portal. You can get some more information by visiting the East Carolina University's website to learn more about scholarships that are available to all students. But we do have scholarships that are specific for STEP students. There, I will say there is sometimes specific criteria that students have to meet in order to apply for those scholarships. They may have to be certain majors, they may have to meet certain criteria. So we always encourage students through our transition curriculum. So I mentioned really quickly before we get off that a student applies really early to the ECU STEP program because I provide them with a transition curriculum during their high school senior year. So students apply junior year, I provide them with a transition curriculum senior year. The transition curriculum gives the students the ability to get front loaded with some information and start learning about ECU, to start learning about the STEP program, but also provide them the opportunity to learn about college lingo and the differences between high school and college. We do have this transition curriculum is available for free on our website at step.ecu.edu as well. So the idea of the transition curriculum and the timeline of information is very similar, but I will say the transition curriculum that I provide to the students is based on East Carolina University and our timeline for the STEP program. But it gives them the ability to learn more about our scholarships. So I provide them with updates on when the scholarship portal opens, and keep them in tune with all the resources that we have at ECU. Well, I'll do my best. And I just kind of want to close out tonight by reminding everyone that our ECU STEP application is open, and I encourage you guys to apply to our program to learn more about the ECU STEP program. So I really appreciate that last question for tonight. And I'm going to close us out by reminding you to apply to the STEP 2026 application. Applications are now open until May 15th. And go Pirates.